Gears of War E-Day. Tell me what you thought of that reveal.
I had a lot of secondhand fear the night before they showed it.
Is it weird seeing him again?
No, not at all.
No?
The thing about seeing Dom and how this ends. Going to see Cameron's Titanic. The boat sinks. The biggest takeaway from this that I think any game developer out there needs to understand is that the younger generation doesn't give a about your graphics. It'll show like 4 seconds of that trailer starts now, and I'm like, you.
I hate that. I hate that.
I know I'm about to watch the trailer. I don't need it. It's like a porno that starts off with the guy everywhere, and then the guy shows up and he's like, I'm here to fix the cable. I'm like, I know his load's gonna go flying everywhere. Let's build up to it at least. I don't think anybody in the console space apart from Nintendo has any idea what the fuck is going on right now. And you can quote that. The highlight of my day was getting to the bar and having a drink or two, and then I come home and keep drinking. And then when Boss Key crumbled, it basically got to the point where that loop was complete, where I didn't have anything to work on.
How many a day were you having?
I lost count.
Ladies and gentlemen, look who's back on the show. Cliff, how are you, brother? Thanks for
I am waking up. The coffee's kicking in, and slowly emerging back into the public eye, which is awesome and exciting and fucking terrifying. Can I swear on this? I don't remember.
You sure can. Why is it terrifying?
Because there's a lot of trolls out there, and I've had my share of them. But I've done did an interview with Brian Crescente recently, where I did kind of almost a bit of a mea culpa, talking about what happened with my former studio, Boss Key, and just being open and transparent. You can put up whatever fake version of yourself you want to project into the world, especially online. But at the end of the day, when it comes to myself, I learned, you just got to be you.
But I never got the idea that you were putting on a performance. When did you kind of turn that page? Not to.
I don't know, man. You look at back in the day. I got this Aura ring and it's driving me fucking crazy. We'll talk about that in a minute. Doing a million interviews over the years for going back to Unreal Tournament, and then the Gears franchise, and then eventually Boss Key and Lawbreakers and all that. And you look at a for-profit driven internet, which the world is capitalism is great until it's not. And I learned, especially the last 5 years, it's really that simple that somebody, and I've said this in other interviews and podcasts, like, Kojima is a friend of mine, right? And I could make a comment like, I think Kojima's amazing. He's the last rock star game designer out there. I do think his cutscenes can get a little long, but that's kind of his thing, right? And then the pull quote, will be, Bleszinski calls Kojima a piece of shit, right? And then we live in a culture where, especially it's worse than ever with TikTok, where it's literally like, vroom, 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 vroom. And I'm always reminded of the NPR, National Public Radio in the States. They did this April Fool's story where the title was "New Study Shows That People Don't Read." And then if you actually read the article, it was like, just kidding, April Fools. We did this article.
No one read it.
Because what people did is they read the title and they went boom right to the fucking comments. And they were like, yeah, that's not true. I read, blah, 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 right? And that's the world in which we live of, bite-sized entertainment of small, medium, and large. And that small has gotten increasingly whittled down. And then when you add in, rage for profit, and on my public Facebook, facebook.com/Cliff.Bleszinski, which is oddly very positive, by the way. I get very few trolls on there, of all things, and so many people are like, Facebook is dead, nobody uses Facebook. 75% of my friends are still on that shit. Like, stop lying, people. It'll look cool. Instagram's where it's at. It's like, Facebook owns that, right? I'm gonna be over on WhatsApp. Facebook owns that, right? Et cetera, et cetera. But looking at the professional dashboard on there and seeing, I'm like, okay, let's do a test. Hot topic: Sony decides to get rid of physical discs, and I'm like, all right, let's see if I can do this. Hey, Sony's got rid of physical discs. Man, I'm gonna miss that. On one hand, I understand why they did it because I will not bat an eyelash buying a million games on Steam. But then again, I trust Valve. But then if Valve were to go crazy and be like, you don't have the license to these titles anymore, there's other venues such as GOG.com and the Epic Store and things like that where I could acquire said
Mm.
games. Whereas people are nervous about Sony having this monopoly over the Sony store, blah 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 blah, blah. And then vroom, like a million comments, or not literally, but that's hyperbole, but a ton of comments. Then I go to my dashboard and I'm like, huh, I just made 20 bucks for doing that. And that's literally the world in which we live. And so there's so many people with the culture wars, especially in the States, where, these people might not even believe a single word coming out of their damn mouth, but they'll be like, oh, so and so said this about trans athletes. And then they'll post like this inflammatory image. And then the whole, like, what do you think? Comment below. And then people are like, yeah, I got something to say about that.
There's
Keyboard
channels,
warrior.
as you know, dedicated to just negative stuff on gaming, and
Well, because
really, that's it. Nothing else.
it's not cool to like shit, right? And if something
Yeah.
is heralded, is if something is loved, inevitably somebody shows up and goes, it's not that good. And then, entire careers have been built on this, especially in TV and film. You look at the critical drinker. And if you take that guy as, just entertainment, the majority of his videos I do find entertaining. He makes some good points occasionally, but at some point he's drank his own Kool-Aid and it's Ouroboros. The snake is eating itself. And you're just like, dude, the biggest example of this recently that I am clinging to and absolutely mopping up with a North Carolina scratch made biscuit is the Odyssey.
Odyssey. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my
it's a
God,
flop, man.
dude.
It's a flop.
Oh, dude. And the next one I'm closely watching, by the way, is Zach Kreger's Resident Evil, because
Oh
you
yeah, that'll
can't
be
deny
next on the chopping block.
the first
Uh,
trailer was really promising. I love his prior work.
yeah.
Like
Weapons. Yeah.
Weapons was great. Barbarian was great. I love the girl from Weapons, the teacher. I think she's beautiful. She's got that short, curly kind of blonde hair, very iconic look about her. Great
I thought you were
actress. I
an
can't
Alexa Bliss man.
I am though. I am. I mean, it's for me. It's a blonde thing. You've seen my wife. It's we go to these
Yeah, yeah.
we go to these comedy shows, and the comedians like one time they love us at our local comedy club, and they call
Yeah.
us out. There's like, oh, we got I was wearing like a suit jacket and everything. Like, oh, he looked like a producer, and she looked like Christina Aguilera, and I'm like, damn, is this Miss Cleo, which was like a famous like fake psychic in the States. And then one time, one of the comedians is like, "Oh, we got Paris Hilton up here in the front," and then my wife's like, oh, "Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that." But anyway, my whole point going back to Resident Evil, like the last trailer was even better. And even had those winks. It's a shot of the typewriter. The main guy frantically looking for shotgun shells, all that stuff, and that shot of him running in the street with the zombies falling and just I thought was amazing. And the shot of the zombies coming out the door with the arms all like up and everything
I
like
think he
that.
gets it. Yeah, I'm
I think he
confident.
does, but it said,
Yeah.
unless I see Jill Valentine, it's not a Resident Evil movie, blah, blah, blah. But the going back to the
Uh,
Odyssey, all of those grifters were like, this is woke. And then they're following their little leader, Lord Elon, who I used to worship and respect until I researched and saw, oh, he got his money from his parents. He made a few smart bets with investments. I mean, I made my share of smart bets with, Oculus, for example, which obviously, financially did
why
great.
was Oculus such a good investment for you?
I got in round one, and then I
Yeah.
got
Are you still in, or did you cash out?
oh no, I absolutely cashed out. Zuck came in and threw a bunch of money at it, and I made more money off Oculus than I did probably in 20 years at Epic. And
Jeez.
well, Tim and Mark were really good to me, but I always say I was really great to them. I don't think they would have sold as many licenses to the Unreal Engine if we hadn't consistently delivered 90 plus rated games. It's that simple. Um, Is that a dickish, ego-driven comment? Maybe, but is it true? Yes. But going back to Oculus, and again, Odyssey, those grifters made their money before the movie came out. And now they're all like trying to backpedal and everything. Like, oh, the Rotten Tomatoes reviews from the audience have to be verified audience
I
users. Yeah,
saw that.
as
Yeah.
opposed to you review bombing like, and somebody made this. I hate some of those little like, meme charts that they make with that the crudely drawn character crying and all that shit. But sometimes somebody did a chart of it, like, of the audience review versus the critic review, and how they do the mental gymnastics of breaking it down, like, oh, go woke, go
Do you
broke,
know
and all
what
that
I hate? I hate the AI photos of the behind the scenes, like
Yeah.
of the Cyclops and things, and you know it's fake, and people are just eating it up on Twitter, and
The
I'm
the
like,
the, the
fuck,
problem the
it's
problem is
fake.
it's becoming exponentially harder to
I
tell
know,
that it's fake. And
I
then when
know.
you add in the mom and the grandma and the aunt, the uncle
Oh,
factor,
of course, yeah. They
we're
don't have a
we're way
clue.
we're way past the shitty Will Smith eating spaghetti. Now it really looks and sounds like Will Smith. I've been following this
Crazy.
very closely. I've been playing with AI. I tried to do some game creation, messing around with Claude. It was
In
really
Unreal?
clunky. No, just Claude. Claude is one of the AI,
Oh, okay.
yeah, AIs that you can mess with. And yeah, I actually wound up spending a lot of time messing around with stuff and Grok and Sea Dance. And it's such a weird thing right now where, we're way past the whole like, hey, look in the back, he has an extra finger. Like, it has gotten, even in the last
Yeah,
six
yeah.
months, it's gotten so good in some of these videos. There's this video I follow on this account on Instagram. I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically this like cell shaded series of videos of this person that looks like they're in Rio, this young person on a skateboard, and the colors are so bright and vibrant, and they're skating down this hill going really fast, and you can see the mountains on the side, you can see the sea on the way down on the left, and boats docked, and the hair is flapping, the person's shirt is flapping, and they're just happy just skateboarding down this hill, and it just looks like this dream skateboarding game that we would all love to play. And AI is just, again, going back to capitalism. It's good to a point, and it's like, it's allowing a lot of these creatives to make stuff that the Hollywood system or the video game industry would normally be like, no, that's just never going to work. And mark my words, a ton of video games these days, even especially behind the scenes when it comes to code, are using it. And no one wants to admit it because there's a bit of a witch hunt with it going on right now where, there's two words I could go the rest of my life without ever hearing. The first is woke, and the second is slop. And it's like, it's the whole like,
Friendslop Games. I'm sick of that term. I'll
that
tell you what.
that I actually have a soft spot for because my wife loves that shit.
Yeah, but
And
those games are fun. Like, just why do we,
yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Everyone loves to have a term for it, right? And it's easy
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say friend slop, right? But like, she plays the shit out of that silly game Repo with her niece, and it's
Yeah.
these the little android looking heads collecting stuff, and
Mm.
the core loop is simple. The graphics are terrible, but for some reason
But there's a
it's like
charm
my
to them.
exactly, and that's the thing. I remember the first time I saw Minecraft, as I was working on the Gears games and trying to make this, this sand locust. Let's make it look amazing, blah blah blah. And then Minecraft comes out, it's all blocky and shitty, but it was charming, and that
Yeah.
adds to it. The biggest takeaway from this that I think any game developer out there needs to understand is that the younger generation doesn't give a fuck about your graphics. Your average Call of Duty player might, your average GTA player might, absolutely, but there's a ton of players out there playing Roblox. And Tim Sweeney, the multi-billionaire, my former boss at Epic, he's been public about this. He has Roblox envy. And Fortnite's still a juggernaut. There's been a slight downturn the last couple of years, but it's still huge. And they're pushing Fortnite creative, and they're hoping the next big game will come out of Fortnite creative. And
Do you
they've really
think
been pushing on that.
do you think Fortnite will still be going strong in say 10 years?
Who knows, man? I mean, you look at
Mm.
Minecraft. Minecraft,
Mm.
there's Microsoft often acquires things and ruins them, especially game studios. And but when you look at what they did with Mojang, and they really, whoever they put on that,
Oh
they
man.
they they they
Yeah.
they built it up and built it up, and they made an amazing live service game in a good way.
So
And
did Notch
Minecraft's
cash out? I thought he was involved, but is he not involved at all?
Oh no, he already had fuck you money before he sold the company.
Yeah, I know. That's
And,
what I meant.
and
Yeah.
the reports were saying that he was very, very much more than the majority owner. Again, I heard this, so take it at face
Far out.
value. That the people who helped build that with him apparently did not get to truly cash out. Which I don't know if that's true. We celebrity net worths and blah blah blah. That's all conjecture. You can't confirm those numbers, but he and I have this like on and off again kind of back and forth like on social media over the years.
What
And
about?
it just, he's kind of gone hardcore alt right. Yeah, and
Mm.
I lean left, and Elon Musk lost me when he said empathy is a weakness. And it's like, dude, you're just looking for approval. Like, and you created a government agency over an incredibly stale meme. Like, what are you doing? Like, you could cure world hunger and you're not. Like, well, okay, dude,
That was
you know,
the one thing I liked about the recent Spielberg film. It was about empathy, and I didn't really like the film, but that was the one thing I liked. The message behind it was about empathy
Yeah,
and
and I mean I can get behind that, but nothing about that film really interests me. It seemed
did
like,
you see it?
no, I skipped it.
Nah.
It's one of
Yeah.
the few Spielberg movies that I actually skipped.
Yeah, it wasn't
And
good.
for me, it's I'm looking at the trailers. I'm like, okay, this is going to be 2.5 hours of trying to make a point about aliens, and I don't necessarily need to see the damn aliens. Like it's usually better if you don't see the aliens and don't see the monster. And if I want a good movie about that, and again, I'm judging, what Disclosure Day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm judging without seeing, but based on
No,
what I
some
read
people
about.
like it. It just wasn't for
Yeah,
me
I mean,
personally.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll go back. I will go back and rewatch Contact, which I think was Zemeckis, McConaughey and Jodie Foster, which to me is an absolutely incredible film. And based on the book, I think it was Carl Sagan wrote it. But yeah,
Mhm.
we wound up on aliens. But
So,
but yeah, back to
yeah.
video games.
Yeah, yeah, no. So Unreal, have you seen the stuff with Unreal and they're backpedaling on like blueprints? Yeah, the blueprints.
You talking about AI integration or? Yeah, I mean they had that back when I was there. I mean the video that I saw from the State of Unreal was a dude kind of demoing the whole idea of you could just
Yeah. What did you think of
using
that?
I mean, using prompts to build a city. I mean, sure. And that's the thing is, here's the thing is, you look at the trajectory of, again, let's take the argument about gamers don't care about graphics, the younger ones, and we'll put that over here for a second. To render a city, of a GTA level of scale, the amount of manpower involved, apart from even building it, to test it, to texture it, to do all the art and everything like that, is a tremendous task. And you look at inflation, you look at the cost of games, and one of the ways that the publishers, those funding the games, were trying to offset those costs were to do a games as service. The game gets to the point where
Mm.
it's the locomotive that's going. Kind of like a Mr. Beast crossed that point where he's making enough money on his YouTube channel that he then put the money back into the YouTube channel, and then it made more money. And then he started doing all these outlandish things, which made even more money. And then he wound up with that whole setup.
Mm.
He got married recently. Congratulations. And, good dude, more power to him. But in his wedding photos, even in his wedding photos, he looked like this. Anyway, um, haters gonna hate. No, actually, I respect the hell out of him. But going back to the whole procedural city thing, there was an IP that I was working on at Epic many years ago where we were working on something similar. Of course,
Yeah.
this is before machine learning and AI, but you could basically, specify, in a simple blueprint, okay, I want a building that's, uh, you know, 10 stories tall, 5 stories wide,
Oh, okay. Right.
using this template, for the
Mm.
windows, and then just, give it a variant where every fifth window has a slight crack in it. And that it's that kind of thing. It's like procedural textures that are used in some games. And it all comes down to zeros and ones. It's all code. It's just a matter of how you get there. And players want cheaper games faster. And if this is, another tool, much like Photoshop, Blender, Maya, whatever, that they can use to deliver that, I welcome it. Is
Yeah.
there an environmental cost? Absolutely. But you can't fight it, sadly, regardless of what side you're on. I have one of my dear friends who lives, he's about 35, 40 minutes away from me, slightly smaller town here in North Carolina, and he's actually on a board of a local entity that's fighting the potential, data center that's coming in, close enough to them
Yeah. There's
that,
one near us too.
I've seen the
Mm.
videos where, these people who've lived there for 20 plus years, and you're out in their back porch and you hear like,
Hmm.
that's fine if it's a white noisemaker I'm sleeping with, but when you're sitting out back having a cup of tea, you want to hear
Mm.
the birds, you don't want to, feel like you're living right next to a fucking freeway. And I get that. But I mean, some say that's the march of progress, but it's on, the local governments to, if things are going to happen, find areas where it's not going to be intrusive. And I say that as when I moved to Southern California, my wife, Freudian slip there. My mother's golf course home. It was a nice house. not crazy, but just nice. And it was in, by a golf course, but it was literally a quarter mile back. You could see the power lines that were right there, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
boom. But it was still, because it was Southern California, it's still valued, to this day at like nearly $1 million. But that's, hey, California.
You think they're on the right track? Do you think? Yeah.
Tim Sweeney, he has gotten it from day one. And one of the things that Tim learned many years ago was that if you can give a better tool, a better screwdriver, a better paintbrush, you'll get better results. And there's people out there such as myself that are creatives that have these worlds that we want to create, these characters, these vehicles, these weapons, whatever. And I'm a shitty artist, and I can't really code very well. My earliest games were drawn in Microsoft Paint, and I used Visual Basic, and because I couldn't wrap my head around C++ because I'm not that smart in that department. And that actually wound up being an asset in the years later when I, could work with programmers and artists to help, make their work better, because I had the environment to do it, but I also had the tools. I could wrap my head around the Unreal Editor to actually make levels and environments. And Tim gets that. And now, using AI as a tool, I think I like to equate AI to the early onset of CG. Good AI usage is when you don't notice it. And, especially with code, like, what are they going to do? Like, reverse engineer it and be like, ha, that was done by Grok or something like that. Like, they're not going to do that really. And
I
if
don't think
somebody
people
does,
care much about the code. It's more about the Gen AI, isn't it? That's what I've seen.
yeah, you look at the fact that, all of these companies and entities went out and just scraped, ArtStation and all of these
Yeah,
websites when people put their things up to expose their stuff to get a job, an actual paying job,
yeah.
shamelessly. And I remember the first, God must have been 3+ years ago when I was screwing around with Midjourney. And I remember seeing in the bottom right, there was like this little squiggly blur of color that I didn't ask for. And then I put two and two together, like, duh, that was somebody's watermark that they had put in their art. That then, when they had scraped all of this data, they deliberately had something in there. It's like, okay, if the, something's in one of the corners, let's, scribble that out. And they've gotten far better at it and figuring it out. But that was the early instance where I'm like, oh, okay, this is straight up theft. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why a lot of the stuff that's been made art wise, in particular with AI, has a sameness to it. If you're like, okay, make a slightly cartoony CG character, like 9 times out of 10, it looks like a Pixar character. It's got
Mm,
the same kind of big-eyed look to it. And
mm,
a lot of that stuff feels derivative. There is a human touch in what you type in with the prompts, which is not that different from being a screenwriter on Final Draft. But then, you're missing the director of photography, the lighting person, the costumer. You're missing the director, really pulling the strings of what that vision is going to be, and you're letting the machine do it. And that's why a lot of it has appeared derivative. But the scary thing is, it's getting better and better and better. The AI stuff that was done 3-4 months ago to this day already pales in comparison. There's this YouTuber, I can't remember this person's name. It's a very weird, unique name. They were recently signed to actually make a full featured film that's actually coming out in theaters at the end of the year. I wish for it was began with a G or something like that. And actually
mm.
subscribe to their YouTube channel, but they're doing some crazy stuff. The voiceovers and the lip syncing still it's like you're still getting a little bit of that uncanny valley right there. But again, it's only going to get better and better and better. And that's the scariest thing about it. But a lot of the comments that you read, and they say don't read the comments, but I read the comments, are like the gatekeeping of, the video game industry to some extent, and to a larger extent, Hollywood and television is coming down. And YouTube did that to some extent. You look at the success of, Backrooms, and now Hollywood is just chasing down any, creepy pasta phenomenon, anything that became a big deal on 4chan, and like that's the next big thing. And you know, for every Backrooms, you're going to have like a dozen, horrible movies out there coming soon, because they're just, okay, that's the direction we go, and let's chase that smoke, right?
Well, there was Light. Do you ever see the horror film Lights Out? That was a YouTube short.
Yeah, that was
That
that
was like
woman
a
in the woman in the bed. I think Shyamalan produced that, where she turns off the light and then she turns it back on, turns it off, and just that little core nugget of an idea was really solid. And it was a decent movie, if I recall. Sorry,
yeah. It was
years
a decent
ago.
movie. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's that simple of starting with that simple of an idea.
Mm.
Channel Zero, the TV series, came out of, Candle Cove and all that came out of creepypasta. And this is just that kind of stuff is just modern folklore. It's the modern, spooky story told around the fire, and then, then they found a hook on the car door, kind of classic stuff. Going back to, the urban version of that, which is Candyman. And
Yeah, yeah.
humans like to be scared. We always have throughout history. For some reason, that empowers us. The niece was visiting recently, and we're like, okay, she'd heard about the Badabook, and she wanted to see it, and we're like,
Mm.
okay. And she's one of those people that just yammers the whole time during a scary movie to feel better about the fear she was feeling. And I'm sitting there going, would you just shut the fuck up, kiddo? And it's gonna come out, it's gonna pop out right now, it's gonna jump out, it's gonna just shut the fuck up. And it comes back to the whole entertainment thing. I'm seeing that my wife and I don't have kids. I don't want kids. I think kids are parasitic sociopaths. That's right, I said it. And but watching the world through this kid's eyes, and we were like, oh, okay, let's show you some SNL skits. And she's like, I saw some of this on TikTok. I saw that on TikTok. I saw this on TikTok. I'm like, yeah, you saw 30 seconds of it. You saw 15 seconds of it. And this, I've said this before in other chats. This comes down to MTV Total Request Live (TRL), where, and I'm showing my age. Where back in my day, MTV showed music videos, right? Which is the dumbest old person cliche thing to ever say ever. But it comes down to TRL with Carson Daly, where they start showing a music video and they show the first 45 seconds and they cut to the next one. It's like, hey, I'd like to see, because David Fincher started in music videos. I'd like to see Fincher's full vision of Janie's got a gun here. Can I please? And then YouTube fixed that. But still, we're at the point where, the whittling down of the
Yeah,
attention
yeah.
span has just gotten insane. And, like the niece, like, I loved Britney Spears, right? To the point where I co-produced her Broadway musical, which actually tanked, and I lost my shirt on that one, for the record. It was a good idea on paper.
Did you hear the movie The Rip on Netflix? Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. They had to have an action scene in like the first 10 minutes due to, Netflix wanted like an action scene at the start, middle, and end for
Well,
attention span.
that's they went through the whole, like, South Park manatee, plot generation thing. And it's somebody like, literally, and this is the same thing with social media. If you're scrolling through and you stop on one thing for more than a second, a light goes off in Meta's headquarters. Like, ding! He likes pickles. Send him all the fucking pickle ads.
Oh, stop.
And
Yeah.
it's the same thing
Bloody
where,
hell.
like, people will start watching something. You don't know if, they had to pause and go to dinner or pause and go to the bathroom or like they know you stopped at that one moment. Why did you stop? And the same exact microcosm of that has actually happened. I look like the girl in the car on TikTok who talks with her hands right now, and they're always doing this.
I
And
think you're spending a bit of time on TikTok, Cliff, by the sounds of
barely. No, I live on YouTube, right? But the
Okay.
thing is, my friend Chris, who's a local filmmaker producer, he's my movie buddy, and we'll send trailers back and forth. He finds them before I do. He's probably on like Movie Web's Twitter or something, and he'll send me these links. And this thing, even with like renowned filmmakers, they'll show like what happens like 2 minutes and 30 minutes in the trailer, where the trailer builds up to car crash, monster comes out, guy shooting. It'll show
Yeah.
like 4 seconds of that trailer starts now, and I'm like, fuck you.
I hate that. I
I
hate that.
I click the link.
God,
I know I'm about to watch the trailer. I
far
don't need
out.
it. It's like a porno that starts off with the guy blowing his fucking load everywhere, and then the guy shows up and he's like, I'm here to fix the cable. I'm like, I know his load's gonna go flying everywhere. Let's build up to it at least. Jesus Christ. And that's the thing
Oh
is,
God.
and I'm big on cut to the chase
Oh,
sometimes, but
you're
like
funny.
I like the build of a trailer. I like
Yeah.
and that, going back to the pop star thing, we're gonna go put the porno over here. Uh, like that hole has been filled. Back to the porno with your Tate McRae's, your Sabrina Carpenter's, and your Billie Eilish's of pop stars, right?
Yeah.
My the niece sat me down. She's like, "You gotta watch the Billie Eilish movie," and I didn't really like Billie Eilish that much. And I watched the movie. I was like, "Okay, what?"
You like it.
James
Yeah.
Cameron was worked on. Okay,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it was actually very well done. Like, I get Billie Eilish
Was it
now. I
just a
appreciate.
concert or what was it?
Yeah, it was her concert. It wasn't
Yeah.
one of those crazy backup dancers. It was just her on a stage, wearing a big baggy shirt. And that's kind of her whole
So what did
thing
Jim
was.
Cameron do? Just sit there with
Uh,
the camera?
Basically is what I gather. And
Well,
the thing is, my whole point is I get Billie Eilish, I get Sabrina Carpenter, I get Tate McRae, and but the thing is I'm sitting there, she's like, you got to see Tate McRae's performance. I think it was the VMAs or something. I'm like, okay, and we're like a minute into it. I'm like, oh, I didn't know she can really dance and move, and she's like, yeah, she was the dancer first. I'm like, okay, that's great. And then like we're 90 seconds in, and she's like, oh, we can skip ahead. I pause it and I look at the kid. I'm like, Riley, I can watch 3 minutes and 30 seconds consecutively. Okay. I can handle that. And I finished the video. It was entertaining, great pop star, fine, And that's the thing is the weird thing is going back to Billie Eilish. This is gonna come full circle in a second. I'm sitting there doing some work. Yes, I am doing some work these days. You'll see some stuff hopefully eventually. And we can get there in the conversation.
yeah.
And I'm listening to Billie Eilish on Spotify. I got it up on my second monitor, and all of a sudden I hear this one song that's all kind of like slow and very, I'm like, that sounds like a James Bond theme song. And I tab over and I'm like, Billie Eilish, James Bond. And it's like, yeah, she did the song for No Time to Die, because it's like the thing they've done with Bond the last however many years, 15, 20 years. Find a big pop star right now, get them to do the Bond song. She won like an Oscar for it, apparently. Um, and so then I text the niece and I'm like, what the hell? Billie did a James Bond song. And she's like, yeah, No Time to Die. And it's an amazing movie. And so she came and visited. Her mom and her came to visit. I'm like, okay, one of the movies we're going to watch besides the Badabook is we're going to watch No Time to Die. My wife's like, oh, I fucking hate James Bond. I'm like, I'll do this. I'm watching it. And no big spoiler. The movie's been out long enough. They actually killed Daniel Craig as James Bond at the end of it. Literally fucking killed him, which was crazy. And but it's 2 hours and 45 minutes, and the kid's just watching it, and she's sticking with it. She's not even on her fucking phone. I'm like, because of Billie Eilish. And I'm like, I'm trying here in my lizard brain to understand the mentality of the youths, the kids these days, right? And like everything's taught on TikTok, 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 but can we reach younger folks with, not only we have them with small, short form entertainment, can we get them with medium
Well, look at
of,
the Odyssey. Look at the success
that
of that. That's a 3 hour epic. It's not particularly I mean it's modern, but it's not like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah. So I mean, if it's done well, and
mm,
you look at the hundreds of hours that younger folks will put into Minecraft and Roblox and things like that, and it's not a lost cause, and that's why always go small, medium, large, and that's the going back to the whole Ben Affleck interview though. I mean,
yeah.
now more than ever, and I was saying this 10 plus years ago, you have to hit people over the head with an 800-pound sledgehammer to get their attention. Okay, you had my attention, but then you have to get retention. I've seen, people who have, millions of followers on some social media platform, and they'll post something relatively interesting. They get like 10 likes or, 3 comments. And that's the difference between, and there's so many people, the quants behind the scenes that are just studying all this information and all this data to try and optimize it. And the truth is there's no consistent formula. You want to ever feel bad as a creator, as somebody who has a podcast, like go to YouTube and look up the top viewed videos ever, and you will want to put a gun in your mouth. It's just like, it goes back to Charlie bit my finger, and your average, mom's like, that's so funny. Hey, honey, get over here. Charlie bit his fucking finger. Isn't that wild? And that
To
comes
be
full
fair,
circle.
that video is funny.
I mean, in
Come on. Come on, Charlie.
America's funniest home video kind of way. But there's a lesson to be had there. Hang on. In Especially in America, your average person loves mediocre shit. I mean, I had a medical procedure done recently, where I couldn't eat for like 8 hours before, and by the time once it was done, I was starving. And we have like sandwich stuff at home. I could have made myself a nice tuna sandwich or a nice egg salad sandwich, right? But my wife's driving me because I was like, I don't feel like it. And we're passing by McDonald's, and I'm like, fuck it, let's just get McDonald's. And McDonald's, is it a great cheeseburger? It's nowhere near the level of Five Guys or, even Whataburger. But sometimes you just want a shitty cheeseburger. And that's one of the lessons I've learned, trying and largely failing doing stand-up comedy at open mics is people like mediocre.
All right, so switching gears because we've only got you for a certain amount of time, Cliff. Um, E-Day, Gears of War E-Day. Tell me what you thought of that reveal at the Xbox Showcase.
I had a lot of secondhand fear the night before they showed it. When the first trailer came out and it was Marcus struggling with that locust, they had the banners in the background that the wars had ended, and then boom, hi, surprise, new enemy. Um, And they showed how tough a locust was to kill. I'm like, yeah, we're getting back to it because we did that in the first Gears where it took nearly a full magazine to take them out. And Dom was like, damn, they're tough. Like, and then you had to nail your active reloads or eventually getting close to use the Lancer and chainsaw them, etc. And then the night before, I was like, please be good, please be good, please be good. And I fucking love God of War. I love David Jaffe. He's a friend. But I saw his reaction that he put up there, and and he's just like slamming it. And I was like, David, like no good could come of this, man. Like you're just gonna look like the old bitter dude. Like and the thing is, I thought, the new one looked really, really good. Laffy or Laffrey. Um, it didn't have like the same level of gore that you would see in a traditional God of War game, but it's in this whole, afterlife kind of realm where they can have their cake and eat it too with all the violence they want, but still, hit a larger mass market. That might have been the decision that they made there. I
Mm.
don't know. The combat looks slick, it looked tight. But even if you didn't like it, there's ways of being like, I was kind of missing some of the gore and some of the brutality that was in some of the earlier God of War games, but I still think the graphics look great. I thought it was well acted and I thought it looked slick. I am looking forward to it. There's a way of saying that. But I was like, I watched the video
I don't think
for
he cares though, Cliff.
you know what, dude?
You know what I mean?
He cares enough to put a video of himself out there
Yeah,
saying something
I
about
know
it.
what you mean. I know what you mean, and I agree. I think there was a nicer way to say it for sure.
And I think,
100%. I agree with you.
David's, when I did his podcast, I think, I am a little jaded. It just seems like he finally got to the point where he's, paying his bills and he doesn't give a shit anymore and he says whatever comes to his mind. He's always been that guy, by the way. If you recall his early videos and interviews.
Yeah.
Um, and it's one of those things I was like, I would jokingly call him David Gaffey, because he would say, all these quotes and that he helped stoke that culture of the quotes being taken out of context. And he did say he did talk a lot
But
of
he
shit. But
actually
thanks,
said them, said the
yeah,
quotes.
exactly. But
Uh,
apparently he does think Kojima's a dick or something. I don't know. But the thing is Ide looks great, and
yeah, no, yeah, I thought it looked
but
good.
the second I saw the Juvies though, I was like, Jesus Christ, that is like the dumbest character enemy ever created. Just do wretches, dude. And that's just like a callback to Fortnite. Juvies, like even the name just sounds stupid. But overall, it looked fucking awesome. And they're
What do you
like, oh,
think
we
of
added.
Dom and those characters back? Like, does that sit well with you?
When in doubt, give the people what they want. I
Mm.
think, Gears 4 and 5, I thought were really good, but they were missing a little bit of what I think made the original trilogy, resonated so well. And I think part of it is the audience was at a certain point of their life in their mid to late 20s where you could make that level of impact on somebody. You might not ever get back to that with some people. You spend the rest of your life chasing that nostalgia of the first time you played that, which is a hard thing to match. And I think, the characters that they put in 4 and 5 felt a little bit like, oh, we're gonna make these heroes for the modern audience, as opposed to Marcus being the tough, grizzled guy who's been through everything. You had JD and Dell and whatnot, and they very much felt a lot like, okay, this is for the younger crowd, and gamers could smell that, and they didn't really vibe with them as much as they'd hoped. I'm not saying they're bad characters. I just, I think they were like, okay, let's go back to Marcus and Dom. And it's the same thing. Gears is the game about the chainsaw gun, but let's be honest, in multiplayer, players just went to the Nasher shotgun. And that's the thing is
Mm.
they quote added a jump button, but it seems like more of a context sensitive jump. The reason I didn't want to put jump in
Mm.
Gears in the first place was coming off of the Quake and Unreal games. Bunny hopping was very much a thing, and I just hated seeing these
Yeah,
players just going doing,
a
doing,
100%.
doing, doing like they're on fucking pogo sticks. It was just completely stupid gameplay. It was different in Quake
Yeah.
because Quake had that little like happy accident of the bug where if you strafe jumped, you could get extra added momentum.
No,
Uh,
that was
so
the right
that
decision for sure.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
like skiing in tribes, and
Mm.
again, happy accident, but the graphics look great. It got back to the enemies being scary again.
But
The
but there's a
atmosphere.
weird. Is it weird seeing him again? You know?
No, not at all.
No.
The thing about seeing Dom and how this ends, and when going to see Cameron's Titanic, the boat sinks, but it's the journey in how it gets there that actually makes it that much sweeter. There's a movie example for that, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. God, there's tons of that where the character dies in the end,
Yeah,
but the
yeah, of
fact that
course.
uh,
Oppenheimer. We're speaking of
Yeah,
Nolan. Yeah, we
yeah.
kind of know where that goes. Yeah.
I mean, going back to Star Wars Rogue One, and Star Wars, they're like, yeah, good people died in bringing us this information. At the end of Rogue One, they all die, and you're like, well, shit, that was new for Star Wars. And even though
Great movie.
I have a life size R2D2 and BB-8 downstairs, and my Star Wars apathy has been creeping in. I have like the Mandalorian and Grogu on my list of movies to watch with the misses, and it's like number 3 right now of stuff to watch because I'm just like, I'll get around to it. And I'm like, this just feels like, from what I've heard, 3 Disney Plus episodes just stitched together. Okay, which I enjoyed that show, but like I have like Star Wars apathy these days, which scares the shit out of me.
So you're gonna stream? You should stream yourself playing Gears. E-Day.
I don't
Would you
know.
think about doing that?
You know what that feels like? That feels like I think it was Dazed and Confused Matthew McConaughey rolling up, in the high school parking lot in his Trans Am, saying, "You know what I like about high school girls? I get older, they stay the same age." It feels like that dude, going back to like the high school like of his glory days. It just it feels weird. I'll
But
talk about it
you're not
on his.
involved, right? You don't. Do you know things, or do you know things behind the
No, I mean,
scenes?
dude, I've said this a million times on my socials, on every interview. They never reached out to me, uh,
So
and
then,
for the
why are you worried? I mean, you're going in fresh.
I mean, that's one thing, Ramiro is a friend of mine, and Ramiro has kind of embraced his history. The fact that his memoir was full on called Doom Guy, right? And John's done
Mm.
so much since that. And he and Brenda, they're going around and teaching also and doing lectures. And John, one of the many lessons I've learned from John Romero is, embrace your past, but also remind people of where you are in your future. And John will still go to like places and deathmatch people in Doom. And at the end of the day, that's just not me. I'll comment on it.
Good on you, man.
I will play it, but if I play a Gears game, as much as that was a really, really good time of my life, I'm just going to associate it with, you're playing a very broken version of Gears that wasn't done. Because I always say you're playing a broken version of the game that's not that good until it starts getting great, and then you're exhausted, and then you give it to the public who gets to play the efforts, the fruits of your labor. Going in the morning in front of the team and playing through a certain level, usually massively hungover, and trying to give feedback and trying to choke down a Jimmy John's shitty sub, and trying to rehydrate and take on the day, and finishing your Starbucks and moving on to Red Bull. That's stuff you can get away with in your early to mid 30s. As I got older, I'm just like, yeah, no, the kicker is, it's not that I dislike challenge. When I'm done with this later in the day, I'm going to continue with Expedition 33, which is fucking amazing. Um, it's just, reliving that whole like, the problem, honestly, seriously,
Yeah,
Dan, is I'm just gonna have a notebook next to me, and I'm gonna want to make notes of things that could have been improved,
yeah.
or
I was going to
little
say
bugs
that
that I find.
you're going to be critiquing the shit out of
What?
it.
Well,
Just
they
not because you want to. It's just going to happen, isn't it?
that's one of the things I am good at, that I will pat myself on the back from, is I was, and hopefully still have it in me at some point,
Yeah.
taking something that's good and making it great. It's like I was playing the Gears
Mm.
remaster for a while, and there's that big fight in front of the House of Sovereigns, and I found one spot on the left side where you couldn't take cover, even though clearly it looked like you take cover. You can take cover there. Some level designer fucked up, is like they didn't, because you'd have to manually place all those nodes back in the day, and
Yeah.
like and there's this wall perfectly chest high, and I went to go take cover, and my character just rolled against it, and I was just like
Mm.
throwing the controller like, you motherfucker, like you had one job to place that cover node there. And again, I think they automated it at like a later date, but still, it's just like, that's the thing is, and I still, to this day, even with as much as Expedition 33, again, late to the party, my game of the year. There's times where I'm like walking in this beautiful environment, and I'll see the LODs, the level of detail, and I have a decent PC, where there'll be like little plants on the terrain in front of me, and I'll see it kind of at a slight distance fade in, and then I'll back up. I'm like, wait a minute, I back up, go forward, and I'm like, look at the LODs right now. You can see the plants popping in, and I'm like, that part of me is just ingrained in my brain, and that goes back to that little bit of OCD that I have, where that made me a pretty good level designer, where everything has to be on the grid, everything has to be properly aligned. And there's this children's book that came out many years. I don't know if they still do it, called Highlights for Children. I don't know what the Australian version of that was, but in the back of the
Yeah.
magazine, there's the spot the difference between the two images,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
that's a lot of that is QA and game development. And seeing, like, and a lot of that is Call of Duty. Once you learn what the level is, and the characters usually blend in with the environments. The second you can tell that there's somebody in the door because he's
Well,
like this big, and boom, pop him, right?
that's what Kojima does. It sounds like you and Kojima are one and the same. The sort of role you played. I mean,
I
that's where I
suppose. I
he
mean,
sits there and plays the shit out of games and says this is wrong, this is right. Comes
yeah.
up
I mean,
comes up with the
but yeah,
characters, the story.
he has the overall vision, but he has also as the thing where he wants to cast actors or actresses that he finds compelling.
Okay, that's the
And
difference. Maybe
well, yeah, I
you
mean, I just, I cast people like, we watched that Terry Tate Office Linebacker commercial, and we were like, no, that needs to be a character in our game. And then you wind up with the Coltrane, and I know, like, a handful of like celebs that I've talked to about, like, hey, I need to get you to do a VO for my feature game, and if the game is budgeted at a decent amount, it's probably going to be for scale, but you get to be in the game, yay.
Hey, I saw you in the credits of Mugenics. I'm hoping to get
Yeah,
in there
yeah,
too with a
yeah.
meow or two.
Yeah, McMillan's brilliant. Like,
Yeah,
the Binding of Isaac like sold a bazillion
so
copies. I
good.
mean, and he's just over there doing whatever the hell he wants and still doing amazingly well at it. But he's like, he and I chat, and he's like, "Hey, you and your wife want to do some meowing?" And we're literally sitting at the computer going, "Meow, meow, meow, meow." It's like that old commercial we had in the States for Meow Mix, and they had like meow, 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 meow. They used cats meows to make a song. And I hate cats, but I was willing to do a solid for him.
So what do you think of Xbox at the moment, Cliff? I'm curious. And the shit
I
show over there.
I've said that I'm considering possibly making another game. That the key word being considering, and the press went with it. Bleszinski's back, like I said, considering, you motherfuckers. It's like, oh, there's a concert I'm thinking about going to. Oh, he's going to the show, like. So, considering, but that's the thing is, one of those things, if I do something, the space that I would largely consider would be PvE, because I think it's evergreen. I think, players just want to get online with their friends and shoot some shit.
Hmm.
It's sometimes it's that simple.
Yep.
PvP is basically you're playing, Apex, CS, COD, like the top five. Everyone's playing that. Anybody who's tried to infiltrate that space is face planted, going back to Concord and all of that. Yeah, the joke that I made was Lawbreakers walked so Concord could face plant.
What about High
Lawbreakers,
Guard
High
issue?
Guard, is that the one where you actually had like mounts and things like that, if I
Yeah,
recall?
that
Yeah,
lasted like a week.
yeah, that looked really promising. And unless you hooked them and hit them over the head with that 800-pound sledgehammer day one, they
It's
just and
crazy,
now
man.
players watch the concurrent, the concurrent
Drop and
player
that's
on
it.
Steam. And if the party's not popping, they're not going to go to the party because they have a party with Counter Strike or COD or Apex, and they're just going to go back to it. My wife to this day still 9 times out of 10 in her fucking stream goes back to Counter Strike, in spite of the fact that when she plays Premiere, she fucking rages, and I have to sit across from her trying to get shit done. Like, would you calm the fuck down? But going back to the consoles, I don't think anybody in the console space apart from Nintendo has any fucking idea what the fuck is going on right now. And you can quote that, Sony going getting rid of like physical discs, and this
Oh
comes back
yeah.
the timing of Sony right there within the same window to remove the digital license to a whole bunch of movies that people thought they owned on the
That was
PlayStation
bad.
Store was just perfect
Bad.
timing. And I feel for whoever manages Sony's social media accounts, because every post to anything, hey, there's
Every
a new
post right now. My God. And it's
it's
not
it's
letting up. It's not.
it's
It's getting
it's
worse.
it's Sony's Epstein files, right? Anytime there's anything political, it's like, hey, release the Epstein files, Epstein, and people will not let it go, rightfully so. Because you look at, okay, let's take GameStop and used games and put that over here because fuck them. The people who want the collection, they want the physical copy because you look at Lawbreakers, apart from those beautiful people that are reverse engineering it to actually make it play again, because I thought we made a pretty good game. The thing got crushed by Overwatch, but that's ancient history at this point. These games, once the plug is pulled, they're gone forever. And that to me, as somebody who's been playing games since I was 6 years old, is incredibly sad. And I'm from the era. I'm sure you're what, like in your 30s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could buy a PC game like an Ultima game, and it will come with a cloth map. And I had to push on Microsoft with Gears 3 to include this. Probably increased the cost of goods per game by like 50 cents. That printed photo of Dom and Maria, with a little signature in the back. And you get the game. Oh, then you get the collector's edition with the actual metal cog in it, and it was really felt slick and very well done. And some of us do like to collect
I
that
can
stuff
still
and put it
smell
in the
the
corner.
manual of a game.
The
Yeah.
I That's the biggest thing is, and
Mm.
I still have that nostalgia. You get a new game and
Mm.
you'd open up the manual, and people are like, people
What a
never read the
feeling.
manual, but you'd open up and you'd be like,
What a feeling
yo,
that was.
yo, man, you got any more of that manual? And then, I think Asha is her name.
Yeah, yeah.
She came in. She's just like, I'm here to, kick ass and chew bubble gum, and I'm all out of bubble gum. And she's just like, I think Phil was doing a really good job, but they were chasing the dragon of Game Pass so hard to try and be the Netflix of gaming. And then on the other end, Netflix is trying to make games. They did that kind of relatively cool game where you're the
Horror
girl
game.
and yeah, you're in the hard you're in the apartment and the
Yeah.
guy's chasing you and you're using your phone for it. And
I never
I
played it.
didn't
Did you play it?
uh, I watched my wife play it because I didn't really feel like
Was it
playing
any
it, but
good? Because it had
it
Troy
wasn't bad.
Baker in it. Yeah.
It was, yeah. Well, Troy's great, and he's a sexy beast, that man. And but she's on her phone with it, and she, the character's calling you, and you're trying to get through it, and you could replay it without a death problem, but it was pretty gory. It was relatively well done.
Okay.
It was kind of like, was it Bandersnatch that they did with Black
Yeah,
Mirror?
yeah.
It
Yeah,
was a
yeah, yeah.
cool little experiment. Who knows if it's going to go anywhere? Because I associate Netflix, doom. Okay, chair goes back. What are we doing here? I think Lucky is on Netflix. My farting chair is farting, and like they do this thing with where they release TV shows now. We'll give you the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then you have to wait. And I'm like, we're watching it, like, I'm really feeling this the next night. Okay, you want to continue? Nope, no new. I'm like, fuck. And so I have to make a little notepad on my phone. Okay, this maximum pleasure guaranteed. That's only available on Wednesdays. Okay. It's Wednesday. We can watch the new episode of this. And I'm like, what is this? Must see TV Thursdays. Are we looking for Friends and Seinfeld now? Come on, just give me what I fucking want. Let me watch it on my own terms. But real quick, back
Well,
to the
yeah.
console thing. I don't think Sony and Microsoft have any idea what the fuck they're doing right now. So if I were to make a new game,
It would
uh, you
be
know,
across everything or Steam or
it
yeah.
would be PC first.
Yeah.
Just do fucking PC, do Steam, and
Hmm.
then just cautiously look and see. That's one of
Yeah.
the things, the mea culpas that I did when I did the interview with Brian Crescenti, where I was, again, straightforward about my struggle with alcohol over the years. 4 months sober yesterday, by the way. And
Yeah.
so
Congrats, man.
much
That's great.
so much spare time now. It's funny how that works. I only need 7.5 hours of sleep too. Weird how that works.
How did you break out of that, by the way? If you
Uh,
don't
I,
mind
was- I,
sharing.
I was hospitalized.
So you got
Yeah.
to a point where, yeah, because my
Well,
my friend
I
my friend actually went through a similar thing at a similar time frame as you. So I'm just
yeah, that
yeah,
I mean, I could do an entire podcast on that. And
I
I
know,
believe
I
I
know.
believe that if you've been through some shit, like in my memoir, I was talking about when I was 15, I was molested by a dude I met online. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I was a very young 15. And I talked about it a little bit because I think if you've gone through shit like that, and there's people out there who've gone through a similar situation, and someone in the public eye can talk about it, it helps.
It
And
does, man. It does.
the video game, I was ultimately responsible for my actions, but it got to the point where you go to your GDCs, your E3s, all these expos, and 3 days of work hard, play hard, and then you come home and you're sitting on the sofa, and the silence was deafening. And my relief at the end of the day, it started with a little bit of beer, and then I moved to downtown Raleigh, which was a King's Cross in Sydney, where everyone goes out and gets shithoused. I think that's the
Yeah,
district.
yeah.
I was in the the Raleigh version of that, where you can just throw a rock and hit a bar. And I'd work my butt off on the gear stuff. I would call it at a certain point. I'd go home at like 12:30, but I still would drink a lot. And then it got to the point after when Boss Key, the first 2 years were great. And then it got to the point the last year and a half where, I would do my work, I get my stuff done, and the highlight of my day was getting to the bar and having a drink or two. And then I come home and keep drinking. And then when Boss Key crumbled, it basically got to the point where that loop was complete, where I didn't have anything to work on. Once I finished my memoir, I did Scrapper, the comic book that I did with Image and Alex DeCampi. It was the
And you're
highlight of my day.
still drinking
Yeah,
every day.
it
Yeah,
was yeah, it was the
yeah.
highlight of my day. And
How
when
many a
that's
day were you having?
I lost count. And that's the thing is
Really?
people lie to their doctors. That's the funniest part of it all. And I eventually got to the point where I have a really amazing doctor, and I just think she's incredible, and I don't dread going to see her. I look forward to it. And I'm straightforward with her, and I'm taking all the supplements she wants. I'm back at the point where, I'm this close to my liver being back to normal.
What about
And
drug use?
no, I mean, I enjoyed weed a fair amount, to be fair. Indica. And my whole thing is I've always had a hard time sleeping
Yeah.
because my mind goes at 9,000 fucking miles an hour. And it's learning. The highlight of my day now is having a productive day and crawling into bed with my wife and our dogs and just fading into the abyss. And then where the fuck am I going to go tonight in my dreams? Last night I dreamt I was hosting some sort of a show with, like, I think it was like Zach Levy or one of those, like, like uh nice brown haired actor guys that we kind of know. And we were on stage at the very theater where I performed Peter Pan and when I was in the 6th grade. And then the teleprompters weren't working. We had to keep the crowd entertained during it all. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. And that's that. I mean, I think that's the theater nerd in me going back. And that's why I was able to work with the programmers and the artists and then do all the interviews and have, go on stage in front of a packed Grauman's Chinese theater and play Gears in front of them, which is basically digital acting, and then do Fallon twice and all of
Oh, you
that.
did
And
Fallon. How was that, by the way?
I posted a clip from it on my Twitter. I'm not
Yeah,
calling
yeah.
it I'm not calling it X because Musk is kind of a dick. Um, and yeah, we were playing against a boss, and you had to shoot the eyes to take care of the boss. But if you shot the eyes in the wrong order with that particular build, the
It
game
was a
would bug out,
bug.
and yeah, you couldn't. And time slowed down. It's like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they're filming this for TV. There's a live studio audience. I'm with Fallon, and I'm
Oh
realizing
no.
shit. And
Did your heart
Jimmy's trying to
sink
kill
or
it.
were you all right?
Oh yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
my awesome PR person, Dana, was in the green room, like fuck, right. And I eventually had to pause it, like, can't do it right now, Jimmy. And then Jimmy's like, all right, wrap it up. And as they say in show business, it's like working with kids or animals. You never know what's going to happen. And it's the same thing with a live demo of a real. We were actually playing the goddamn game in an early build, and that sucked. But the show must go on.
Was he a
The
nice
game shit.
guy?
Yeah, he's chill. He's just very,
Yeah,
like, very high energy.
yeah.
And he's kind of become almost a caricature of himself these days, where he just laughs at everything that the guest says. Um, but it's every time you go on Fallon, you get a mug, and I have 2 mugs upstairs. And Questlove came up to me, from the Roots, and he's like, "Hey man, will you sign my drumsticks?" And I was like, "Sure." And I'm like,
He
"Questlove."
was a
And
fan.
yeah, I was well then
Nice.
because well he makes every guest sign the drumsticks, to be fair. But then I was
Okay.
like, Questlove, can I have a signed pair of your drumsticks? And he's like, okay. And he gave them to me, and they're
Oh,
like
cool.
they're framed and hanging in
That's cool.
upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I have a million stories like that, like celebrities encounter,
Do
like
you do
Jeff
you have
Keighley. Oh yeah,
ADHD, Cliff?
I'm not diagnosed.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the thing, I have friends who are on Adderall, and I was like, wait a minute. I looked it up. I'm like, this is an amphetamine. Like, fuck, man. And that's the thing is, like, I realized early on that I, was an alcoholic. And
Mm.
it's such a dirty word. I want to do a comedy bit about it where I want to, like, replace the term with drunkomatic or something like that. Or just let's just use lush because it sounds like, like I'm gonna get in a big bubble bath. It's very lush. And I just knew, and like I had a tooth extracted a few years ago at the start of COVID, and the doctor prescribed hydrocodone to me. And I was looking at the bottle, and I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, oh, this is an opiate. And I knew that I was an alcoholic. I'm like, I'm just gonna ride out the pain here. I'm gonna put that in the shelf just in case. And then eventually I just flushed it all because I'm like, I don't need another fucking addiction. That said, I will say indica gummies are awesome, and I do miss them because I just hit the point where, apart from some caffeine, I want to go just full on clean,
So
and
there
I
was
feel great. I'm having really, really good poops.
I didn't ask Cliff. No.
It's all one. It's all one system, Dan.
No, dude, you are looking healthier and I'm glad that you are 4 months sober, did you say?
Yeah, I
That's
will
really
say,
good, man.
you do get that pull occasionally. I'm watching No Time to Die,
Mm.
and Daniel Craig, who, by the way, I thought would have made a good Marcus Phoenix, for the record.
Yeah,
But
okay.
I still think Batista would kill it too. But
Yeah.
Daniel Craig walks up, he's like, "I'll have it shaken, not stirred." I still want to do it in the Sean Connery accent. "I'll have it shaken, not stirred." And I see that beautiful gleaming martini, and that little part of me is like, "Oh, I miss that." But
Yeah.
my personality is I can't just have one, which is why I was pretty fucking good at what I did making games, because I would just dig in and it turns out when I didn't have something, even my own podcast, by the way, f13podcast.com,
Yeah.
we have
Tell us about it.
we have dozens of fans, Dan. My friend Brian McGinnis, who's a local stand-up comedian and voiceover actor, I met him at the local comedy club. Big, tall, Uncle Fester looking motherfucker. Funny as hell. He's been kind of my Sherpa also with the comedy world. And he's a great guy. And, every Friday we record it. It comes out on Mondays. And we've had the guy who wrote Gears 4 and 5, Tom Bissell. We've had stand-up comedians like Mike Kaplan, MYQ Kaplan, who's just next level, as well as just all sorts of interesting people. And you have to build up to it. I knew
You're
getting
still
into the
trying to find an
podcast world.
audience, a bigger audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was originally called Crunch Time. And then I talked to Brian. I'm like, there's 8 million podcasts out there called Crunch Time. And discoverability is everything, as you know,
I
with
think you've got to
podcasts.
put your name in it, Cliff.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
I
you might
have.
have
I have.
to. You have? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, the podcast with Cliffy B and Brian, etc.
Okay.
And it's it's one of those things, I'm doing it. It keeps me grounded. It gives me a target to get a good night's sleep and show up and be interesting for an hour. And it's the same thing with the game idea, again, idea
Yeah. Tell us.
that
Can you
I've been
tell us
writing on.
anything about that? Where are you at with that?
I mean, in the Brian Crescenti interview, the thing that I said was, PVE. And, every time I walk into a Home Depot or a Lowe's, home improvement store, all I see is an arsenal. And that, I guess, that whole chainsaw part of me,
So it's a shooter.
dies hard.
It's going to be a
Uh,
shooter.
Shooter-ish, you know.
Okay.
Let's just say I'm not gonna make a fighting game. My mind boggles when I think about making a game like Expedition 33. And like my parry game is on point, by the way, in that game. When you nail those
It's good,
parries,
isn't
it's
it?
it's
Soundtrack's
so
banger
good.
too, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's awesome. The whole
Yeah.
game's great. So yeah, I actually do have to go. I
No,
apologize for
yeah.
the short
Sorry,
time.
Cliff. Anything else you want to say to the fans?
You can come at me if you want to troll, but my therapist has taught me how to deal with it. So my troll armor is plus 50. And occasionally I will parry and call you a douchebag back, but at the end of the day, I'm built to create, and I might make something new soon, hopefully. And hopefully more than 4 people show up.
Well, Cliff, I love talking to you again, mate, and hopefully we can do this again because you and me can talk for hours. So appreciate your time, mate.
Thanks, man. Hit me up in another quarter or so.
We'll do.